Hi. 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 Did you start the camera?
Yeah, everything's running. We're ready to go.
Thanks for coming. I'm Colin Groesbeck. This is Neil Clingerman. That's Sean Bires. We think it's best to open the panel with some discussion about our intentions here and offer you a brief introduction to our topic, which is Sakuga. Sakuga is a Japanese word that natively means anime drawing, as in the physical illustrations themselves. Genga is one type of Sakuga. It means keyframe animation. These are the key position or pose drawings in an animation cut. Doga is another form of Sakuga. The word means in-between drawing. Doga depicts the fluid motion or movement between the Genga drawings. So Doga and Genga are types of Sakuga, and Sakuga's basic translation is anime drawing, and that's that, right? You see, the word Sakuga has become this type of fan jargon name for a kind of scene or episode of anime footage. One of the more common production stereotypes associated with movies, OVAs, and TV shows animated in Japan is that these productions seem to favor cheaper and more limited movement animation than the films by their Western counterpart studios. Studios like Disney, Rankin Bass, or Don Bluth Entertainment. Budgetary conservation tends to be the modus operandi for Japanese animation. It's an industry where it's commonplace to lay out scenes entirely composed of still frame characters with flapping mouths. Now, what we want to draw your focus to is the idea that anime is anime because it is able to overcome these constraints of limited motion or economic animation. So let's take a look at an example. We have here a very economically animated show. The clip. At least the three of us agree that the clip we just saw was pretty much an accurate example of what that show looks like 99% of the time. But sometimes, rarely, it starts looking more like this next clip. So the kinetic action scene you just saw is what we animation fans call Sakuga. And guess what? That entire scene was drawn by a singular artist. One artist alone. The Sakuga fandom is basically artist appreciation for individual animators instead of directors, studios, genres, or shows. It's a well-known fact that in Western production, many hands touch a single cut of animation footage. Let's use Disney productions as an example. You may have one guy who exclusively draws Simba into a given frame, while someone else draws all the side characters into that same frame, and yet another group of apprentices will draw the backgrounds and the stupid little dancing flowers. But in Japanese productions, scenes or cuts are given to a single animator to draw on their own. Sometimes entire episodes are even given to one of these animators. This type of workflow has been the perfect breeding ground for specialist animators, which makes total sense, right? Give the artist who draws the best car motion all the racing scenes to animate, and give the guy who draws the best battles only the most important battles in the series so that they look the best. So that brings us back to this idea of artist appreciation. If you think about it, the job of an animator is to draw characters that some other artist has already designed and make them fit in and move as part of a piece of media. It's not their job to be a disruption to their project by being overly individual. So how is individuality expressed by an animator? It's through motion, framing, and layout. Sakuga fans seek to appreciate the individuality of artists who work in a medium that purposely obscures their personal signature. So now that you know why we're here, why don't we take a look at our first artist? I'm going to show you some clips from, 3 clips from Yutaka Nakamura, who's a grandmaster of battle animation. Some of the signatures of this artist are consistently high detailed keyframes, low and wide camera angles, he uses a lot of them, very, very complex back and forth choreography for fighting, and bladed weapons that turn into triangles while they're swinging through the air and in motion. So here's a look at 3 clips from Nakamura. Remember, this is just Nakamura animating these. This was Studio Bones' first movie. Yeah, it's called Sword of the Stranger. As those swords kind of fly around, they turn into these weird inward-facing triangles. It's kind of a signature of this guy's work. So here you have that cool back and forth choreography that this guy's great about, and like I said, these low, wide-angle shots that he uses all the time. And then this is the last scene, and he did this battle as well. So, moving along, I'm going to let Sean talk to you about the process of animation. So take it away, Sean.
If you need to make a series of drawings depicting the swing of a baseball bat, how do you do it? The industry standard way to do it is to lay out your key poses, and then, so the key poses might look like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you draw the in-between drawings until the motion looks smooth enough. The key poses are the important thing, though, so experienced animators tend to draw the keys, while the less experienced draw the in-between drawings. This way you can make the best use of your top talent. But how do animators know what to draw? There are various design sheets for characters, mecha, and so on. Also, there's a storyboard, which is basically the visual script for the animation. The director will delegate the various cuts to the animators, and these animators will typically draw everything in the cut: characters, mecha, and effects. If there's a cut that's especially heavy with effects or mecha or battle choreography, a director might delegate it to a specialist animator. The director also determines the length of each cut and sometimes orchestrates the voiceover sessions. Before animating, the key animators will use the storyboard sketches to create layouts, which are detailed drawings depicting the characters' backgrounds and exact diagrams for camera movement within a cut. Sometimes in high-end feature films, there will be a team just for layouts, but most of the time it's the key animators translating the storyboarder's vision to the screen. Anyway, after these layouts are approved, the animators can begin animating. So now that you have various key animators and in-betweeners working on a production, how do you make sure that every drawing looks the same? You have a position called the animation director, which is better described as the animation supervisor. The supervisor will clean up drawings and make sure visual continuity is maintained. So here's a piece of keyframe-only animation. Now here's the same piece after it's been corrected and in-betweened to the point where it's buttery smooth. And here it is after coloring and compositing. So the animation workflow is like this. The storyboard is approved or sometimes created by the director, who then delegates cuts to the key animators based on their skill. After their layouts are approved by the director and animation director, key animation begins. The keys are corrected by the AD and then sent to the in-betweeners. And sometimes the in-betweens go back to the AD for correction. And finally, the finished drawings go to the coloring and compositing team. Regarding the in-betweening process, the key animators make their keys, and then on an animation sheet, they get to mark how many in-between drawings they want and where they should go. Those instructions then get passed to an in-between animator. Now, if we go back to this original key animation here, you can see these rough construction lines. These are in-between guides to help the in-betweener, so key animators actually have a fair bit of control over the in-betweening process. So all that is the basic anime production process, but it's a simplified view. Some shows will have many directors, and any episode can have many animation supervisors. If you see an absurd number of ADs on an episode, it's sometimes indicative of low skill or offshored key animation, necessitating a large cleanup crew to make the shoddy animation drawings look okay. But anyway, when we're talking about these big name animators, what we are referring to are the people who make the key drawings. This is what they're really creating. So the guy who animated this scene is Hironori Tanaka, and I'll be talking about him later in this presentation.
All right, so we're going to move on, and Neil's going to talk to us a little bit about the history of Japanese animation, cover a few guys along with that from the early years. So go ahead.
All right. Well, it may surprise you, but anime at one time was a lot like Disney. Here's a clip from one of the first animation produced in Japan to inspire all the other guys that we are talking about today, Yasuji Mori. The film is Panda and the Magic Serpent, and this is Japan's first full-length color animated film, which was produced in 1958. Talking the animals and musical numbers aside, one will notice that the movements of the characters here don't look like anime. In reality, it's a lot more like a Disney film, with lifelike 24 frames per second full animation. Anime would develop toward static and limited styles with the advent of television animation. But at this point in time, film ruled the anime world, and lavish productions like these were the norm. The leader of these sorts of productions at the time was Toei Animation, who was a studio that had aspirations to be the Disney of the Far East. And as you can see here, there's all these cute little animals, everything's very smooth, everything's silky. It really doesn't look that much different than what you'd see in Disney's animated features. Alright, so contributing to the Disney-like animated feel, a number of animators from Toei read books such as this one, Cartoon Animation by Preston Blair, and studied the work of other influential Disney animators like the Nine Old Men. The Nine Old Men were Walt Disney's inner circle of respected and loyal animators. All of these pioneers developed a form of stage play realism. Now, stage play realism as a style is realism with exaggerated movements to more easily convey feeling from a series of static drawings, much like an actor on stage has to exaggerate their gestures so that everybody in the audience can understand the emotion that's being conveyed. As you can tell from that clip before, it's still very much Disney style, and anime would take a few more years to develop its own distinct style. One thing that separated the animators from Toei from Disney's Nine Old Men was that they were social rebels in a time of major social upheaval. Like many countries in the world, Japan had a series of student protests during the 1960s, and consequently, most of these animators at Toei were sympathetic to and active in these student movements. Out of this social ferment came animators who were willing to challenge norms and experiment with motion that was radically different than Disney. Now this clip right here is from Horace, the Prince of the Sun, which is generally considered to be the first modern anime film. The first film to really break from Disney features. This scene was orchestrated by Hayao Miyazaki, who's now a household name, and his mentor, Isao Takahata, who would later go on to direct Grave of the Fire. And as you can tell here, thematically and character design-wise and everything else, this is looking a little closer to what you'd expect in an anime film. With the main character even looking a little bit like sort of a prototype for Ashitaka from Princess Mononoke.
What year did you say this was?
This was in 1968.
That's what I thought. What was the 1960 early 70 Disney film around the same time? Do you have a guess at that? Wasn't Robin Hood, right? Was Robin Hood like 72?
Yeah, I think Robin Hood.
Okay, so these are pictures of Hayao Miyazaki, Isao Takahata, and a third guy, Yasuo Otsuka, who contributed to this whole sequence and this film. Now, the third guy is a guy I'm going to talk about who pretty much revolutionized the way that anime is produced. And basically, I'm going to show you a clip of his work. This is a scene that he did from Hull's Prince of the Sun, or Horace Prince of the Sun, involving a fish. Now, this work shows a strong interest in realism and dynamic movement. While the frame rate is a lot smoother than modern anime, if you look closely, you'll notice that in certain scenes, the fish moves smoother, and in others, the fish moves more choppy. See, you can see him slowly falling into the water. And then as the fish comes up, it's a lot smoother. So, in a nutshell, basically, this is known as frame modulation, where scenes that are given great emphasis have more drawings in them and thus have smoother motion, and scenes that maybe are less important have less drawings and are given choppier motion.
Less drawings equal less money, by the way.
Yeah. So, and here's a continuation of the same scene, and as you can tell, it's just struggling along, and it goes to like a frenzied pace as it crashes through the rocks. And then the rocks themselves move a little slower. Frame modulation.
This movie's up on Netflix, by the way.
Most TV anime, by contrast, is very choppy. Here's a clip of the first real anime TV show, Astro Boy, to show you what I mean. Here the motion is not smooth, and lots of shortcuts are used to illustrate sometimes complex emotions with simple drawings. This is due to budget constraints, which force the animators to draw fewer drawings in order to save time and money. Now, not long after Horace, the Japanese film industry collapsed. This collapse was due to a rise in television. And basically what happened when TV rose, a whole bunch of animators were suddenly thrust into senior positions without much experience. And basically this allowed for a lot of experimentation in direction, style, subject matter, and of course, animation. Here's a clip from an opening Yasuo Otsuka did during this time period, showing the dynamic experimentation that was a hallmark of the early 1970s TV animation boom. This is a TV show called Samurai Giants. And this is Otsuka at his most developed. Notice how in some scenes, like those of the ball moving through the air, which you'll see in just a second, there's the ball, is very quick, and then when he gets ready to pitch, it's a lot slower. This is frame modulation at its most dynamic and expressive, showing Otsuka's classical Disney training applied to the limited budgets of the TV animated world. The shots that are smoother form the basis for more creative animators to be given a money shot, which would allow them to show off their animation. There it is, slow again. Fewer drawings are here, more drawings as the ball goes flying through. Notice the experimentation, different layouts, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And of course, different levels of motion to convey different actions. Okay, here's another example of this experimentation in the opening of the show Tiger Mask, developed by another key Toei figure, Keiichiro Kimura. This clip is quite modern and very innovative for its time. So basically, one way that it's more modern is that the designs are much more simplified. There's a huge emphasis on motion, and everything isn't really cleaned up. The characters have a lot of sketchiness. It's almost like they didn't even sharpen their pencils when they were drawing these characters.
In fact, the AD beat them if they tried to.
So, and basically, I'll be discussing more animators in a little bit who were directly influenced by this very style.
It's evil, man.
Also note the manipulation of perspective here. Characters come close to the camera, they go far away from the camera. Everything's a little warped, everything's kind of wide angle. Okay, all right, that's it. Oh, wait a minute.
No.
That brings me to another much younger animator who got his start in this era. This animator is Yoshinori Kanada. Kanada is really the progenitor of modern anime Sakuga animation, with its emphasis on crazy, over-the-top special effects and creative ways of portraying movement. Here's a clip of Galaxy Cyclone Breiger, an early giant robot show that he worked on. So, one thing you'll notice is how all the lines, even the logo itself, becomes kind of a character through the organic way that they're moved. This is sort of a hallmark of Kanada's style. Another thing you'll notice, if you look at the characters, is something known as box shading, which is where parts of the characters will be lighter shaded and parts of the characters will be darker shaded. That's another hallmark of Kanada's style. He likes doing a lot of crazy special effects, often morphing people into crazy special effects, like with that car. Now this guy was super influential in a bunch of people. And I'm sure you've seen this kind of animation, maybe not as stylized, in a lot of other anime. Okay. To give you a more modern contrast, here's some of the influence Kanada had in Gundam Wing. The effects animation isn't nearly as flashy as it is in Kanada's work, but you'll notice there are effects flying all over the place, arcs and different flashy images coming off of those mechs. That's Yoshinori Kanada's influence on the world of Japanese animation.
Many of the animators that Colin will talk about are what we will call Kanada school animators.
I would say the latest homage to Kanada that I've seen was Star Driver was full of like purposely shiny Kanada scenes.
Yeah.
So, Kanada's style is known as being heavily stylized with an exaggerated eye towards motion. His painting style is very distinct, with box shading, as I talked about before. And you'll notice how parts of the character look lighter and darker. And all these effects are flashy and stylized. Now, in this particular clip, you'll see that there's a lot of arcing flames. And when you see those arcing flames, that was considered so influential to a lot of these visual designers and animators that one designer, Takashi Murakami, decided that he would start in a whole art movement based off of this, known as superflat, or Japanese postmodern pop art. That's the power of these animations. So Murakami actually felt that this was sort of a pure form of Japanese art that reminded him of Hokusai's 36 views of Mount Fuji. And all the effects are organic, they come to life. Explosions everywhere. This is a really amazing scene in a not that great a movie.
We're showing a lot of really amazing scenes and not that great of whatevers.
Okay.
Do you want to switch?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right, so we're moving on to me. And I'm going to talk to you about Hiroyuki Imaishi. And I'm going to talk to you about Hiroyuki Imaishi. And, yeah.
No name.
Imaishi is one of the founding members of the newly formed studio Trigger. He formerly worked at Gainax and Production IG. Some of his big claims to fame are directing both Gurren Lagann and Panty & Stocking. His art style really shows through in Gurren Lagann. He actually drew all the commercial eye catches during the commercial breaks. Yeah, he drew all of those. He like Kanata before him, Imaishi likes to utilize these heavy interior block shading techniques. I've got an example up here, and you can see Kanata style is full of a lot more shiny parts, and is sort of like unnecessarily complex, while Imaishi is like sort of simplified. Imaishi's style comes very close to Kanata's, but does not quite mimic it completely. The Imaishi shading technique is a bit less ornate, and in a side-by-side, I would almost call it the minimalism version of Kanata style. Imaishi style can sort of be considered an evolution of Kanata's when referring to movement. Both of these guys have the same take on how an animated subject should navigate an animated space. Their subjects snap from striking pose to striking pose. So there's a very posed-based movement pass. The focus is more on these main poses than the motion that happens between the poses. What has evolved from Kanata to Imaishi is the warping and dynamic aesthetic of these key poses. So Imaishi takes it way further than Kanata did and bends the characters to kind of these extremes, and will pop like legs and arms way out in the front of the scene, and like, you know, the bodies like and the heads like really far back. He does this on purpose, and Kanata did it a little bit, but not nearly as much or as far as Imaishi did. So I've got a little clip show of some of Imaishi's stuff, and we ignored Gurren Lagann and Panty & Stockings for this because there's probably stuff you haven't seen. So let's do it. This is an OVA that came out a few years ago called Read Cutie Honey, and there's a great bit where she gets hit and her body actually turns into a wiggly noodle between poses here, and it's kind of awesome. Yeah. See, but she's it's not really concerned about what she's doing in between, or the characters are doing in between their poses. He's more concerned about like making as many cool, interesting poses composed on the screen as possible. And Kanata did this a lot before him, just not as crazy. This is a video game intro from Brave Fencer Musashi 2. I think it was Square. Omashi actually has a lot of episode director credits in various shows, so at the end of the panel, you should go look him up and see what you can see that he's done, because when he comes onto a show, it kind of changes for a singular episode, and that's nice to see. So moving along here, Sean is going to tell us about Ichiro Itano and the Itano Circus.
You've seen this before, and it has a name. Sometimes it's called the Missile Circus, but it's better known as the Itano Circus, named after animator Ichiro Itano, one of the first big names in the Sakuga world. Ichiro Itano is not a one-trick pony. He revolutionized the way action scenes are depicted in anime. He entered the industry in an age when battles routinely looked like this. So, you got cuts of things shooting, cuts of things getting shot at. It's pretty boring, right? And the camera is far removed from the action. Stuff is just moving left and right in this flat cartoon world. Now, here comes Ichiro Itano working on his first TV show, which is the original Mobile Suit Gundam. He doesn't revolutionize anime overnight, but you can see in his scenes how he's starting to get the camera into the action. He's letting things move in 3 dimensions. He's trying to accommodate multiple subjects in the same shot. Itano continued to develop his idea in the next TV show by Gundam creator Yoshiyuki Tomino. Here's its name. So now you can really see him breaking out of the old paradigm of static battle scenes. Instead, we're seeing a fantastical display of robots and projectiles weaving around the camera in an intricate ballet. This made fans stand up and notice the power of animation, cementing Itano's name to the Sakuga Hall of Fame and inspiring a new generation of animators to make visceral and imaginative battle scenes. In the ending movie for the series, we see Itano's choreography at its full maturity. Here it is.
I think that robot's a fire truck. No, I'm serious about that. I think it is a fire truck.
So one interesting tidbit about this movie is that it's like super apocalyptic and like all the characters die horribly, just all throughout the thing. It's a direct inspiration to Evangelion.
End of Evangelion.
End of Evangelion.
There's actually this amazing scene, like once, all the good characters start, trying to defend their ship at the last minute, and you get to see this, 8-year-old girl in a spacesuit with, the mom trying to protect her, and she just totally gets her head, ripped right off by this laser beam. It's absolutely horrific.
They have compilation videos on YouTube of all the gruesome deaths in the show.
And then, the last... Yeah.
Really? Nice.
Awesome.
Oh, sweet.
All right. Ichiro would later work on Macross, where missile circuses are a staple. Ichiro said that he originally got the idea from something he did as a kid. He attached a bunch of rockets to his bicycle and rode around as the rockets flew off in every direction. It's anecdotal, but it's such a legend of anime that you'll see it referenced here and there, like in this clip from Haruhi, Suzumiya Haruhi.
It's also why no health insurance company will take him.
That's it.
All right, that's it. So we're going to move on to Neil again with Ohira and Hashimoto.
All right. This is the work of Shinyo Ohira, one of the most talented animators in the world. He's a guy that literally makes people melt. So here's an eye-popping clip he did from Holic, a movie based in the popular Clamp universe. Ohira really likes exaggerating motion, manipulating gravity and balance, like with this rabbit right here. See, he's struggling to get up, he's trying to get around, he's manipulating the gravity as well as perspectives on the camera shots. So, motion tends to be kind of wobbly. It kind of has the Ohira wobble. See, there he is struggling, and then the ball bowls him over with 1,000 tons, it looks like. So Ohira has animated some of the most complex scenes ever, like this short in Animatrix, Kid Story, which is a tour de force of his style. Now there's one thing I will note. The first few seconds of this clip show a slightly more realistic version of the same style. This is the work of animator Shinji Hashimoto. He's the other person who literally makes people melt in terms of how he animates them, but not as exaggerated as Ohira does. The Ohira cut starts right here. Now, as you can see, characters go completely off model as the action gets more and more frantic. Faces get distorted. There are multiple layers, layer upon layer upon layer of motion being animated. I have friends who are animators that tell me when they watch this that this is incredibly difficult to animate. He likes messing around with perspective. Look at the agents and how they're just struggling to move. They have that wobbly face. That guy walking as he bounces back and forth. Note the perspective on the table. Everything flying all over the place. Anytime you see one of Ohira's scenes, it is a tour de force. And this is pretty much what happens when you give one of these really talented animators a Hollywood-sized budget. They just go all out.
Wait, did he do the scene in Kill Bill in the beginning? Number 1?
Jeez.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he did.
He did that.
He did where I'm pretty sure he did where the guy comes in with a knife and like starts swinging the knife at Oren Ishii's father, or maybe that is Oren Ishii's father that starts swinging the knife around like crazy. So he did part of that.
So, just to show you Shinji Hashimoto's work and how it contrasts with Ohira, this is from Black Heaven. This is the opening, which Hashimoto did. And how you can sort of tell the difference between Hashimoto and Ohira is Hashimoto has sort of the wobbly feel, but it's a lot more grounded in reality. You see a lot of layers on the animation, but it's not as complex. But both of them are really fantastic, surrealist animators. This particular show, you wouldn't tell it from the style here, but it actually looks more like a normal anime. But on this intro, it just goes all out, making it look like some kind of underground animated short. That's kind of the power that these animators have. And this opening very effectively draws you into the show. Okay, well, going back to Ohira, Ohira is one of the rare animators that can actually stand out in a Hayao Miyazaki film. Hayao Miyazaki really likes having intense control over his movies, oftentimes cleaning up the style of all the individual animators so much that his own style takes over from the animators themselves. But Ohira's work shows, as you can see in this climatic scene in Howl's Moving Castle. Take a look at all the little stars that are flowing through. Classic Ohira. Notice how the characters' clothes are moving in kind of a wobbly Ohira kind of fashion. And of course, the thing here that's probably the most Ohira, which you'll see in just a second, are these little dudes who are like circling around them, each one of them having the distorted perspective that Ohira likes to use.
This effects animation right here is just so good.
This guy is basically the work of 10 animators in one person.
All right, moving along, Sean's going to tell you about Mitsuo Iso. Yes, let's clap for everyone.
Yeah,
Give me that. Oh, here we are. All right, in typical animation, an animator lays out their key poses first and fills in the gaps later. The problem with this is the motion always appears like it's trying to arrive somewhere with arms and legs just like landing on a pose all at once. With really great in-betweening work and meticulous planning, you can obfuscate these key poses, but most of the time in anime you see stuff like this. This is somewhat typical animation from the 80s era. It's decent, but you can tell where the keys are, right? It's easy. And in this next clip borrows more from the Disney school of animation with its very smooth arcs of motion. In a way, the characters look like they're having their strings pulled rather than moving with their own energy. There's an animation legend who threw this practice out the window and said, "I'm going to do it my way. Every single drawing will be a keyframe, and there will be no in-betweening work. I'm going to do it all myself so that every part can move with the freedom of not having to arrive at poses all at once, or have every motion be this buttery smooth arc." And this man animated a couple of the most legendary battle scenes in modern anime. Here's one of them.
Spoilers.
That was from animator Mitsuo Iso. When you watch the entire series, Iso's part really sticks out because suddenly the mecha are imbued with weight and momentum. That weightless and jittery feel common to anime is gone, and every blow carries the force of 1,000 tons. Here's the same mecha animated by somebody else. This is from Yo Yoshinari, who animated some of Studio Gainax's greatest scenes. He drew this piece, but his work is very comic booky compared to the exaggerated realism of Mitsuo Iso. The Evangelion does this ninja run here, and the key poses really stick out. Boom, boom, bam. Iso calls his style full limited because he's trying to convey sophisticated motion while animating on the 2s and 3s. His animation is both jerky but very rich and full of movement, with many parts moving in separate directions and oscillating with their own motion. Here's the last clip I'm going to show you. Only Iso can make fiddling with an assault rifle really interesting to look at.
I think I could make fiddling with an assault rifle pretty interesting to look at. Yeah, let me show you.
Yeah, it's the original Ghost in the Shell film from 1995, I think.
95, yeah.
Yeah. Notice how the spider mech uses its body to show some time. Really, really good effects on this. There's a legend that says Iso captured a spider in a glass and studied how it walked in order to animate the mecha. That's the sort of thing that animators have to think about. Here's a bit that Iso did for the old Kenshin opening. Iso was a very influential animator throughout the 90s, and you'll see his language of animation in much of the new generation.
New generation would be me. Actually, I'm going to talk to you about a really new guy. This is Yoshimichi Kameda. I'm going to talk to you about a really new guy. This is Yoshimichi Kameda. He's a 28-year-old newbie animator who was vetted working for Studio Bones as an in-between, a doga animator. Kameda has a fair amount of show credits on his resume, but a lot of them are totally inconsequential. And I say that because his in-betweener work lacks any personal artistic signature whatsoever. Kameda broke into Sakuga working on Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. He was assigned the key battles in episode 19 of the show as his sort of Sakuga debut. He was later given battle scenes in other episodes, the film, and even the opening credit. Kameda's promotion to Key Animator was announced in the June issue of New Type magazine in 2010. It was the same issue of New Type that coined the fan jargon name for his scenes as Kameda style. Kameda's particular artistic signature is he uses what's called a sumie style brush pen. So it's like a sumie ink brush for writing kanji, but it's a pen. He uses the brush pen to create these like really dirty black ink lines during character close-ups and like kinetic action. And although he still only has a few scenes showing off his stuff, I want to share them with you. So I've got the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood clips, and I want you to pay particular attention to when like a character's face gets really close to the screen, or when a character gets covered in like effects. You'll see for just a split second or two, these characters get like really thick, brushy, fuzzy lines. So let's hit those clips. Her hair is all the brush pen in effect scenes.
貴様はこう言ったな。まだまだ死なないと。ならば死ぬまで殺すだけだ。
Yeah, his face is like way off model there too. It's totally okay because it's Sakuga. There was some.
貴様らにとって神とは所詮その程度の存在か。いいな。イシバールの内乱で絶望を知った貴様は
This guy is so sick.
This is the film. You know, he sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, before this series, he wasn't doing any Sakuga. I see that. There it goes again. No, he's the key animator. Yeah, these are his scenes.
ジュリアよ、兄の気持ちがわからぬのなら、お前も谷と共に沈むがいい。わからねえのはそっちだろうが。こんなことてめえ、本当にジュリアの兄ってのか。人の命を犠牲にして真理を手に入れて何が楽しいんだ。
I should also tell you that these scenes have been recut by us. They're not presented in this order in the film.
開いた先にあるんじゃない。今お前が立ってる足元にあるんだよ。貴様、言われのない。
He's gonna get really brush penny when his eyes get like right up on the camera here in a second.
この私が世界を救い。
Yeah, there. Yeah, if you frame step some of these, you'll see some really, really cool brush pen stills.
覚えていてくれたか。錬金術の腕を試せると思っていた。
Yeah, it's the same movie.
クレタ軍に入ったが小競り合いばかりでうんざり。
This is the intro bit he did. It's very short. And that's Kameda, and like I said, he's 28 years old. So if you're over 28 and you're not doing stuff like this, you might want to come out back with me after this and slice your wrists. So we're going to move on to Sean here, and he's going to talk to you about an nth generation animator named Hironori Tanaka.
While there are big-name surrealist animators out there like Shinya Ohira, Masaki Yuasa, Hisashi Mori, and so on, and also Yoshinori Kanata school animators like Hiroyuki Imaishi and Takashi Koike, these days it might be difficult to find some of their newest work if you aren't a follower of obscure and alternative animation. I want to cover a surrealist animator who, if you watch a lot of contemporary anime, you've probably seen before. He has done a lot of stuff.
That's actually how I got dressed for this panel.
No, best transformation ever.
Here's one of his most well-known scenes. This is from Bakemonogatari. Hironori Tanaka is a big name because he puts out a staggering volume of animation every year. A search for his name on YouTube will pull up at least half an hour's worth of compilation videos. His animation has a little of the rough and dirty surrealism of Shinya Ohira, who he cites as an influence, but also the effects-heavy exaggeration of Yoshinori Kanata and the wide-angle camera work of Masaki Yuasa. Tanaka made his first big splash with Toei Animation's Pretty Cure, and he has since done not one, but 3 full solo episodes of various television anime. Here's a clip of his part from the original Black Rock Shooter. What I like best about Tanaka is the rawness of his drawings, the way he's unafraid to warp space in pursuit of near incomprehensible flashiness. He lacks the refined quality of someone like Mitsuo Iso or Yutaka Nakamura. His drawings are messy, the motion is even messier, and his keys are plain as day. But Tanaka makes up for it with just sheer energy and character. Whenever his work appears on the screen, it has such an overwhelming presence that I sit up on my chair, my eyes bug out, and my jaw just hits the floor. The first time I became aware of Tanaka was in a 2008 anime series about the eccentric tenants of an apartment building. which out of nowhere had a musical scene with Tanaka animating the entire thing. The animation was so rough, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from it.
救われるの明日を探して声が響くこだまするよ邪悪な声返してくれ返してくれ奪えよマリア私の場所
Yeah, because this went on for minutes, and the final cut in the scene had all 6 characters dancing around in one 20-second shot. And despite how funky looking it was, I could feel the artist's passion there to want to do that entire scene. And passion is what we really want, in whatever form in the anime we watch. For that reason, it's the only scene that I remember in this whole anime. My favorite scene from Hironori Tanaka is a floaty and nearly incomprehensible dream world battle. This is where he appears most like the surrealist animator Shinya Ohira.
テレビで言ってたからね正義は勝つって
そうかでは私の勝ちだ私の三なすびがかすりもしないだと
あんたはここでこの夢食いメリーが送り返す
もらった
384戦383敗まずは1勝
バカな私の剣が通じないなんて剣を消し去るとはなくだらない手品は得意なようだ
さあとっとと送り返してやるからそろそろ観念しなさい
Hironori Tanaka is a prolific animator, and you will probably see him in at least 1 or 2 things you watch this year. He is employed often in flashy scenes like transformations and openings and battles that need that extra wow factor.
You know, I want to comment on that too. You could see when her sword broke, the way she kind of staggered and moved was a lot like the same signature he had when the characters were singing in the scene before. I mean, it looked like the same animator, even though the character designs were completely different. So we're gonna move along and
Time to switch.
Yep.
you two switch. So Neil's going to talk about a realist animator named Hiroyuki Okiura.
Some of the anime movies I watched in my formative years were films such as Patlabor, Perfect Blue, Rojin Z, and Wings of Oneamis. What do all these films have in common? A sort of mature cinematic realism, something quite rare in the world of animation. Since there's an entire movement of anime that fits into this mold, there are also animators who are known for eschewing stylization in favor of something that feels more organic and natural. Here is one excellent example from a leader in this style, animator turned director, Hiroyuki Okiura. This is the opening of Cowboy Bebop. Take a look at the motion here. Unlike many of the other people we've talked about, it's not particularly flashy, yet at the same time it's memorable. Why is it so memorable? Because there is a meticulous attention to realistic natural movements. So, these are characters that you really feel like are real people. Every individual character has a personality. Now, their motion is sort of an idealized realism. Every motion they make is used to sort of show the personality of the character being depicted in the emotion. everybody has like maybe a favorite character here. Or at least somebody that's just memorable.
I like the ones that don't let me know.
Do it then, do it when, do it now. What's up, sweet cakes?
I like this one. I'm kind of a fan of that troll.
Yeah, I like Woody Allen too.
Quite neurotic.
All you gotta do, happy food is ask your mom.
Yes, that's actually. I wonder. Here's another good example of his work. Note the feeling of terror conveyed by the acting of the Blue Kid, as well as the sense of weight applied to the rear container as it falls to the ground. Conveying this sense of weight is something that a less meticulous animator would not focus on. This is Akira, by the way.
Really? Never seen it before.
So, his work is so meticulous that a lot of people think he's merely tracing over live-action images, a technique known as rotoscoping. This is Jinro, by the way, a film that he directed that is often described as being rotoscoped. Rotoscoping was developed in the 1910s by the American Fleischer brothers of Popeye and Betty Boop fame, who used it as a means to portray realistic movement economically. Even professional film critics make the mistake of calling Jinro rotoscoped. Jinro was not rotoscoped. It was the work of very talented, realist animators. It's not rotoscoped.
It's rotoscoped.
And it is beautiful. Feels like it's real.
Because it's rotoscoped.
Quiet you. Okay, so anime almost never uses rotoscoping, with one very notable, very recent exception. This is Flowers of Evil, a deliberately rotoscoped anime. Compare this to Jinro or any of the other clips from Okiura, and one thing stands out. This is creepy. Okiura's realism feels natural, but it's not natural movement. Rather, it's moving characters from pose to pose in order to convey and emphasize emotions. Rotoscoping, by contrast, transforms familiar imagery into the uncanny valley. It makes living footage look surreal in a way that Okiura's animation does not. This is not what Okiura and similar realist animators do. Hiroshi Nagahama uses this creepy uncanny valley effect in Flowers of Evil to put us in the perspective of the main character who is overcome by a sense of impending doom through his own awkward teenage angst. And to comment on that, it is beautiful. I love this show. But it is rotoscoped.
You know, I love this studio before they did this show. They did this movie called The Polar Express.
Oh, ouch. As an aside, we've talked a bit about effects animation, and most of what we discussed is strictly stylized effects. Here's an animator who is now a household name, who is famous for his meticulous realism and effects. This is the work of Hideaki Anno. Yes, that Hideaki Anno, from Wings of Ayamis, he's the director of Evangelion. Notice the shrapnel that's coming off each explosion as it just played, and the bold, larger-than-life effects motion each effect conveys while it's being firmly grounded in realism. This scene was actually based off of footage from NASA, and this was all animated by Hideaki Anno. So if you see this kind of pacing, shrapnel, lots of realistic effects, details, you're probably, and it's an older anime, you're probably watching something from Hideaki Anno.
So when we say it uses reference footage from NASA, animators often have reference footage to just get ideas of how to animate certain motions. That's different from rotoscoping, where you actually just flat out trace the footage.
This is not rotoscoped. Okay, as an aside to the aside, this is a memorable scene that Anno did from Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Now, he didn't do all the scene. He just animated the god warrior here, the giant, crazy-looking creature you'll see in just a second. Basically, Anno wasn't a pro animator at the time. So he basically begged and pleaded with Ghibli to get him to work on something. And Miyazaki was impressed with his persistence and felt his work had a certain quality to it. So he had him animate that character. So, in a sense, this is more like how Disney does it, where one person does one aspect. That's Hideaki.
I don't think he actually begged. I think he just like walked in there full of himself.
And that's it.
All right. So next is me. And we're talking about a
Who's after you?
me.
Okay. So that's okay. All right, just tell me when.
Oh yeah, it's me. And I'm going to talk to you about another Gainax guy, because I love Gainax. Yo Yoshinari, who we showed the ninja running Evangelion video from a little bit earlier. And I'm going to talk to you about another Gainax guy, because I love Gainax. Yo Yoshinari, who we showed the ninja running Evangelion video from a little bit earlier. And he is the other founding animator of the newly formed studio Trigger. And on a side note, this is the second time I've mentioned Trigger. The studio has one announced show in the pipeline. It's in the preview stage, but it has a ton of buzz about it already, so it's something to look out for. It's called Kill La Kill. And they also did, is it Little Witch Academia? Is that the name of that?
Yeah. He directed it. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's actually got a Studio Trigger credit on it. I just found out. So that's really new. But Yoshinari is a super veteran. He's been with Gainax for forever, and has been a storyboard artist, a mechanical designer, an animation director, key animator, and like every other staff position possible. And I'm sure he's probably like voiced something like Hideaki Anno voiced the cat and and a bunch of other things. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Yoshinari is so cool that he gets his own eye catch. So Yoshinari is Gainax's flagship animator. He's arguably, you can argue with me if you like, been the backbone of Gainax since he left Madhouse in '92. Yoshinari has a few tells for his work. One of the most noticeable tells is his explosions. I joke that he learned how to draw explosions by microwaving peeps. No, really. The best way to describe them is by saying they sort of like grow out of themselves and blossom on top of themselves. It's like one, another. It's like they're cancer explosions. They're like really organic. I'm sorry if you have cancer. This is really sad. I'm a big fan of this guy, but he's so good at being obscure. It's really hard to tell what he's done and what he hasn't done. Like, when watching any Gainax, Studio Gainax Sakuga, I kind of operate under the assumption that I'm watching Yoshinari, unless somebody tells me otherwise, like the internet, and I'm sorry if I get in trouble for showing any clips that aren't Yoshinari. With all that being said, I'm actually gonna change it this time up and not show you clips. I'm gonna show you a whole short. This is his like 3-minute little show-off session from the extras in Gurren Lagann. And part of it was used in the movie because it's just so fucking dope. So just, yeah, let's just play it. This is Yo Yoshinari. He does everything. doesn't really go off model when he draws stuff.
Though he certainly has a way of shading. But yeah, usually his effects animation is a big tell. If you know what his effects look like, then you know it's Yoshinari.
This is a homage to Captain Harlock. They do it a bunch of times in the show, and it's dope every time. There's one of those growing explosions on the side. There's actually these tentacles when he's running in the next part of the scene will be pencil drawn over pixel animation. It looks really cool in just a second. They're pencil drawn now, never mind. Look at that. He actually does part of another. He does a part of another short from this set as well. That's very cool. That's kind of like a replacement for that wonderful episode 4 of this series. Yeah, sure. So next we have Tetsuya Takeuchi and the One Animator episode.
Mitsuo Iso, who I talked about earlier, introduced a new way of thinking about limited animation. Though he rarely animates these days, a new generation of animators have inherited his lessons. One of them is Tetsuya Takeuchi, who I first noticed in the 2005 anime series Kamichu.
見てました？
何を？
いえ、いいんです。二宮君って変人。うん、天才だってば。ラブね。
When I first saw his animation, it instantly lodged itself into my brain. Takeuchi is much like Iso in that he captures the expressiveness of full animation with a limited number of drawings. He would go on to animate many other scenes from this TV series. We've talked about animators given free reign over cuts or entire scenes in anime, but sometimes, even though this is exceedingly rare, they are given an entire full-length TV episode to key animate all on their own. This happened in Honey and Clover episode 7. Tetsuya does all of the key animation from start to finish, and it's a true tour de force to see one man deliver 20 continuous minutes of great animation.
覚えてる。しゅうちゃんの昔の先生で、しゅうちゃんの大好きな本を書いた先生だ。
何言ってんすか。ヤマトがイギリス艦隊なんかに負けるわけがあるもんか。こっちや山本五十六が金次郎にご成功返しやがった。お前だ。俺はもうあんたを先生と思われ。
ことまで覚えてなくていいから。
It's such a joy to watch this episode from start to finish and be completely in Takeuchi's world. You can tell that he's in control of every little nuance. All the gelatinous character animation and the cascading, exaggerated secondary motion, like the hair and especially the flappy clothing. It's through those things that he's able to imbue his characters with life and energy. The episode radiates with the warm feeling that it's a handmade piece by a master craftsman and not stamped out of an offshore factory. That feeling works for Honey and Clover so well and makes it one of the most effective episodes of the series.
そうなんだ。
うん。
寂しくないね。
うん。で、何探してるの？違う。四つ葉のクローバーってのは人の踏むところによくあるのよ。
なるほど。
さすがあゆ。多分こっちの方よ。探すわよ。
ラジャー。ポケットの中に札束が一つ。ほんと叩けば札束が二つ。お？何？こいつ違う。というか。
You know, what's exciting about this guy a little bit is not that his episodes are full of particularly, flashy Sakuga, but it's like the control factor, He controls the whole look, and even though it's not flashy, it's consistent and nice, and it's got a signature to it, which is, what we're kind of looking at as Sakuga fans here. So, we're into our last couple artists here. So Neil's going to be talking about Masaki Yuasa. Right? That's going to be fun. So take it away.
All right, one series that's gained popularity in the United States, far surpassing its popularity in Japan, is Samurai Champloo. This particular scene is the work of Masaki Yuasa, a wildly... It shows both a childish crudeness in his drawings and a sophisticated eye for creative visuals. They're high on like a whole field of marijuana that's being burned.
I love how they don't even fight.
All right, so let's see. Most anime puts great emphasis on detail on their characters, highlights, shadows, and flowing hair. All of these details are quite difficult to animate, and on a low budget with quick production schedules, this often leads to a lot of static images, which you see all the time in anime. Yuasa, by contrast, keeps it simple, with a childish drawing style that's often not on model, with low amounts of detail like here in Kaiba, which is his master's work. To compensate for his simple drawings, Yuasa utilizes playful design elements and creative motion, oftentimes animating entire backgrounds to achieve the effect he desires. He really likes messing with perspective, both from the character's perspective and from the viewer's perspective, using animation to show wide-angle shots and showing exaggerated character motions. There's a certain kind of run that will tell you that it's the work of Masaki Yuasa.
He's the animator here and the director?
Yeah. We aren't 100% sure if he's the animator here, but this is definitely his kind of style. He is a little bit crude too, but like in the funniest possible way. So here's another thing he did called Welcome to the Space Show. Now this scene is definitely done by him because it's from the work from another director, but he was inserted as a means to give this particular scene a wild creativity that you wouldn't be able to get if you got somebody else. So, by the way, in some of the motion here, you do see influence from that old Tiger Mask clip that I showed you from Keiichiro Kimura, where drawings are off-model. Now, to compensate for the drawings being simple and off-model, he utilizes very wild, creative, oftentimes psychedelic imagery that's influenced by by Peter Max, the American designer who was famous for psychedelia. So, you can always tell when it's a scene by him. He's one of the world's most talented and creative voices working in animation today. Check out this video from the second Chibi Maruko-chan movie, and you can see the wide variety of influences his work displays. Everything from puppeteering to the Yellow Submarine to the French animated classic Fantastic Planet, which screened actually a few weeks ago at the Music Box. So, yeah, look at these different cars and how they move. You just don't see that anywhere else in anime, this kind of way. There's the perspective shots. Notice the hatching there? That's very much a European animation thing.
The first Chibi Maruko-chan movie had some Sakuga in it too.
Yeah, you also got to start doing work on kid shows like this and Crayon Shin-chan. Note the timing and how it aligns up with the music, particularly in this scene. This guy is really underappreciated. There's the puppetry influence I'm talking about. And that's it.
If you caught word of that Kickstarter anime that happened a few months ago, that's his. Right. Yeah,
Kick Hard,
yeah,
yes.
Masaki Uesa's Kick Hard.
I'm a proud supporter.
Yeah, that might even be debuting like right now, for all I know. It was supposed to premiere like around this time.
When do they ship our Blu-rays?
Okay. Oh, look, it's my turn.
So I'm going to be talking about Takeshi Koike here. This is the only time I'm going to say it. He might well be one of the best animators ever. So there we have that. I've said it too. So we all have our own bestest animators ever. He was drafted to Studio Madhouse right out of high school. This guy didn't go to college. He went straight to working for the studio. And that was 27 years ago. Koike is considered the protege of Yoshiaki Kawajiri. What?
No, nothing.
Yoshiaki Kawajiri, and worked on films like Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust and Ninja Scroll for him. I've seen a lot of Koike's random, like, you have been given a staff position animated works, and what I can say is that very little of his extensive early works are anything to write home about. This guy was like just a workhorse for years and had plenty of those still framed characters plus flapping mouthed skeletons collecting dust in his portfolio. So I don't know that I like buy the Kawajiri thing. Like everybody on the net like seems to be stroking that, and I don't feel it. I'm not down on Koike at all for his early stuff. Like I said, he may well be my favorite animator. I'm just annoyed about how long this guy spent undiscovered. I think Madhouse had him doing a lot of crap for many, many, many years. And it seems like that a lot of Sakuga animators kind of tend to go that way. Koike caught his real break working on an animated opening for a live-action film called Party 7 in the year 2000. He was given complete creative control over his own set of shorts named Trava Fist Planet after that. I would say it was kind of like, it was Trava and it was his portion of the Animatrix where his style was truly realized for the first time. There's a great interview with him in the Animatrix, and it kind of since it's like the first real big budgety thing he did, a bunch of like senior animators are like, oh yeah, this guy's great, we discovered him 27 years later after working with him. Right now, I know, it's just like really sad. Koike describes his style as realistic and exaggerated. He uses these like curved black ink shadings instead of like painted colors. So his drawings have this feeling of like anime mimicking American black and white comics. Koike has stated that he likes the look of exaggerated limbs and appendages on his characters. So like he tends to draw these characters with like really big hands and feet and just really weird proportions, but he's very consistent about it. I kind of think that like the modern Street Fighter work of Capcom looks really Koike-esque in their proportions. If you ever see like Chun-Li has like a really teeny waist and like really huge hips, the really big hands. It's like, you know, that's his kind of character proportions. As for camera work, Koike is a master of dynamic perspective. He likes to warp a single focal point or object and leave everything else in his frame unwarped. So if one thing's like moving towards the camera, it will be the only thing that warps out of size. He also seems to be really big on shots where characters rush the camera, blow past it, and then the camera kind of needs to catch up following them and spin around them a bit. I'm a big fan of, I think we're all big fans of the footage animated 24 frames a second or 12 frames a second, like, you know, the juicy, budgety stuff. And because Koike does a lot of his own shots and his films and pieces, there's a lot of that. I mean, he's so big on full-frame animation. Recently, I'm not going to show you any of this movie, but recently he directed a movie called Redline. And that is like Koike at his best, and it took the guy 7 years to make that movie. I mean, I think a lot of anime movies, except some recent ones we've been waiting for that feel like they take forever. But, you know, it's like 2 years or 1 year. But Koike spent 7 on this one, so... Right, no, absolutely. I mean, if you haven't seen Redline, the rest of this panel is a waste of time, and you should just leave this convention and go watch Redline right now.
Or finish it if you left it halfway through.
Yeah, if you... Seriously. The reason we're not showing Redline clips is because we don't actually know what shots are his and what shots aren't. I mean, they could all be his. Who knows? So here's some Koike. This is sort of like... I think this scene right here is like a little of his sort of inconsequential and sort of inane work, but, you know, it still looks good.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. But it's obviously not his character designs. Now it's looking a little bit more like Koike.
It's still not his character designs, but it's got his framing for sure.
It's definitely got the motion.
Yeah, and that dark shading. Big patches of black.
Now, this is really pretty Koike. I mean, it's still not his character designs, but it's from Dead Leaves. Dead Leaves.
It's a 1 hour OVA from Imaishi, who Colin talked about earlier.
I bet you could pick this DVD up for like... Yeah. Now this is the pilot for the Iron Man anime. So this is how they sold the Iron Man anime, but this is not.
Yeah, there's actually an advertisement for Redline.
We were robbed on this one.
He also did the pilot for Afro Samurai.
Yeah, this is like his character designs, completely his style.
I know, but I'm not withdrawing, Tom.
As redliney as it gets. This is from the Animatrix.
That's enough already. You hear me? This is all we've worked for since the incident. Everything over, and you can kiss your goodbye.
I made up my mind. I'm running tomorrow.
Oh, are you? You may run, but if you push yourself any more, you'll be lucky to break 9 minutes.
This is from a Levi's commercial.
Oh yeah.
It's a Japanese one.
What were some Nike commercials from some of these animators?
Yeah.
This is from Trauma.
No, it's a
Party
no,
7.
oops. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Party 7.
I've seen this movie, by the way. It's a live-action film, and this is the best part.
The director of this film wrote Redline, though.
Yeah.
It's a live-action film. Like, what we're not showing you here is that these characters will, like, freeze frame and morph into live-action people. Yeah, so we didn't show you that part.
I've never felt this good.
It's fun how much he plays with time. So much slow motion and stuff.
That's not the ones.
I've also heard from animator friends that animating slow motion that smooth is very difficult.
It's expensive.
Right.
So if you haven't seen Redline, get out. The next guy that we're going to have Neil talk about here is Koji Morimoto.
At first glance, you'd think this animator is firmly in the Hiroyuki Okiura school of realism. This is Bobby's Girl, something that he did in the 80s, along with fellow animator Takashi Nakamura. You would think that he'd be realist, but this is not the case, and you can even see it in his clip a little bit with the backgrounds that kind of flow in a more surrealistic fashion.
This was actually taken out of Take On Me.
This was also incredibly 80s.
It's only from the director's cut.
Alright. Morimoto quickly abandoned this realism and focused instead on a much more Kanata-esque style. This is the opening to the Dirty Pair movie. Like Kanata, Morimoto has block shading and organic but highly stylized effects animation. Unlike Kanata, Morimoto usually adds a surrealist overtone to his work, using bright colors and stylized effects to cover realistic subjects. Unlike the other animators, he often repeats a few character designs and visual motifs. Like, you'll notice a female character here. In the next clip I'm going to show you, it looks very similar to a female character there. So, this is because Morimoto views his work all as part of the same city we're getting to peer into. It's a look into the imagination of an iconic artist. So, Dirty Pair is pretty much the start of this style for Morimoto. I love some of the imagery that he puts together. How she draws a line and that line opens up. Kanata-esque effects animation, but not. A little more realistic.
Morimoto's cigarettes give you robot instead of cancer.
So, pretty much his style matured until this, which is the concert from Macross Plus, probably his most famous scene. So this concert is really a combination of his style, featuring many surreal effects, distorted and morphing images. If you actually go to Morimoto's official website, you'll actually see a character that greets you while the whole site is loading, which takes eons, that morphs into different shapes while the site is loading. Yeah, if anybody has epileptic issues, don't watch Morimoto's shorts.
He did some Utada Hikaru videos, right?
Yeah, he did. So, Morimoto is an animator who straddles the line between Okuura-esque realism and Kanata-esque stylization, with a free-flowing, organic, playful style that oftentimes has darkly serious psychedelic and punk overtones. You can see the psychedelic overtones in these clips, but if you actually seek out some of his shorts and look them up, it has a much darker edge to it. That's one of my favorite shots, where she morphs right after that. And that's it.
So we're going to let Sean wrap it up about why any of this kind of matters. We have to, like...
Don't put it that way.
Look, we have to qualify ourselves, and then after that, we're going to have no time to take questions. But we've got a handout. It's pretty if you can read. So come get our handout.
One criticism you could have against this whole panel is, what's the point of all this Sakuga stuff? Isn't anime all about the story? Now, don't get me wrong, because I'm definitely on your side. The 1980s were loaded with animator-driven productions that had a bare minimum of storytelling. Mostly, it was just a bunch of animators looking for an excuse to draw missiles and fights. This is Project Echo, which is pretty much an anime about nothing. It doesn't really have a story that matters, and it doesn't have anything to express through its animation. It's just animation for animation's sake.
Really quickly, show of hands, who likes missiles and fights, though? Like, right? Yeah, okay.
Don't we all?
Yeah, okay.
But if all you care about is the story and maybe the character designs, then does animation really matter? Well, if the story is over there and you're over here, how do we get the story from point A to point B? We do that with sound effects, voice acting, and animation, and so on. You can think of many other elements, but it comprises a story delivery package called storytelling. And in order to have good storytelling, you need lots of artists trying to answer this very difficult question of how do we best tell the story? It's their creative answers to this question that will determine the effectiveness of their artistic product. Now, you might have seen anime with very good stories hobbled by lackluster storytelling. This is the old Berserk TV anime from the 90s, which I enjoyed because the story was so compelling, but I felt it deserved more than what it got, animation-wise, to realize its story to its full potential. But fortunately, they have the brand new movie series, which is really fantastic on the storytelling front, you know, even with the CG characters in it. You might have seen anime with very absurd stories rescued by some very exciting and imaginative storytelling. Right. Right.
Isn't the scene Issa?
There's a mix of animators doing this part. So, of all things, this is a dark rendition of Digimon with grotesque monster battles and kids crying on the empty streets of Tokyo. with this classical piece being the film's only piece of music. It's storytelling that makes the difference. The man behind this short film practically became famous overnight because now he's directing feature films like Summer Wars and The Wolf Children. People are already calling him the new Miyazaki, and what this director understands is when to use animation. He knows how and why to use animation to convey a pivotal scene. This is the running scene from The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. It's a great scene that conveys the determination of the protagonist, and it's able to do that through animation rather than exposition. One animator slogged away at this very lengthy run cycle. As the audience, you can feel how he channeled his energy into this character. And I just love how she makes her way back and then surpasses the camera. It's very imaginative storyboarding, or whoever came up with that idea.
This animator's Rio Timo, and we actually aren't talking about him this time because he's moved from more of an animator to more of a director. But it's worth looking up. We've shown a lot of clips from him, like the Knowing clips were from him as well. You know, so it's worth looking up at least a video on YouTube of his and go, ooh.
Here's a scene from Hosoda's One Piece movie where our protagonist finally gets the bad guy. You can't not notice the animation here. You can credit the director for knowing how to use his animation team, but it's really the animators doing the real thinking of how do I express with motion? How can I draw a series of pictures to make the audience feel what my characters feel? How do I make my audience understand what my characters are going through? That's the nitty-gritty of storytelling where animators are front and center. In the context of the film, even though this has no dialogue, you can just sense what the characters are thinking about. Some shows are slapped together so quickly that nobody has time to care. The director doesn't have time to care. He just uses the comic book panels as storyboard, and the animators don't have time to care because all the key animation's been offshored. So when it's directed by nobody and it's animated by nobody, the all-important question of how do we best tell the story goes unanswered. So that's why good animation is important to a high-quality storytelling package. The very best movies and TV shows have a whole team of very creative artists putting their blood, sweat, and tears into a story delivery vehicle we call anime. This is Bakemonogatari again. It's a 2009 anime. It was pretty much a smash hit when it came out.
Bakemonogatari. Aniplex has it for sale for like $900.
It's one thing for the story to say on paper, stuff happens and character is sad, but it takes the skill and passion of artists to make those feelings and experiences real. Thank you.
And one more time, that's Sean Bires, Neil Clingerman, Colin Groesbeck.
We got these these handouts.
Actually, you know, we have a couple minutes that we can take a few questions if you want to.
What's some of your favorite modern anime?
You know, we tried to pick.
He's pretty cool.
We tried to pick a lot of scenes from the modern stuff that we've been watching.
Yeah.
Like one of them. What?
Thank you.
No, none of us are animators. No.
I talked to Ben, and he was already very burnt out. Like, he was like, I never got into anime because of Moe. So.
Yeah, man.
I watch stuff as it comes out most of the time. Yeah, you're right. That has a list of stuff for you to check.
Yeah.
What portfolio review were you at? I go to University of Illinois on the graphic design program.
Oh, nice.
They're the representative of
Oh, nice. Hey, how's it going?
I have a headache and I'm really hungry.
Oh, okay. It's my friend Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
Good deal.
My headache wasn't. It's hard to find something inside food because all the solid has like meat is really fast.
You're a vegetarian?
Yes, I'm vegetarian. Well, that means I became one at 9.
9?
It's weird. They just choose that at stick.
That's good for you. Stick around because I think we're going to grab a hand.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, I gotta keep
No, why don't you sit down for a second?
I was sitting down, it didn't do anything.
Oh, sit down again. Yeah, hey, we've been in touch, man. Nice to meet you.
We need to figure out if we want to do anything else today, because if not, we could just
grab our phone.
Yeah, I've got both of them. Now we can just go back to telling you what you already bought.
Gotta get the glass and the candle.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for Neil. I want to grab one of those transcripts also.
Oh, there's some water?
Yeah. Stop. We're gonna get some people together for dinner, so you're welcome to join us.
That'd be nice. I keep wondering if I had, like, I've been wanting, I don't know, maybe it'd be better.
I'm a friend of Neil's, I'm Brent.
I don't know if it'd be,
Hey, what's your name?
Sean.
Sean, nice to meet you.
I don't know if it'd be better to do this like tomorrow or something. I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to like split a Giordano pizza or something.
We're having pizza tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet. Giordano or what else?
No, that's